Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of Reddit Podcast Stories, where today, my girlfriend, who's 30, is upset with me, 32 male. She doesn't want us to have internet or Wi-Fi at the house. We've lived together for over a year, and we have our good and bad times, and lately it's been rough. She's gone from the house all the time. She rarely shares where she is or where she goes. She spends time with me less and less. I've talked to her about this and how I feel a need for more time together, but to no avail. When we moved into this house to live together, she told me she didn't want to have internet, Wi-Fi, a TV, or a computer. All things that I enjoy and I used to love. They were like hobbies, like playing my PS5, my computer, watching sports, etc. But it was very important to her, and I agreed, and I was more than willing to sell my things, earn some extra money, and focus on her and her hobbies. She much prefers board games, time in nature, etc., and I honestly love those things too. At first, she gave me a lot of her time, and our time together was great. Lots of time with board games, outside, playing sports together, being active, etc. So much time outside of work was just us. Over time, she's found new hobbies, new things to do outside of us that has left me feeling alone quite a lot lately. Sometimes for 5 to 10 hours per day, some days less, but some days more. The short of it is, I'm bored, with nothing to do besides things that I'm not really interested in. I don't want to go out, but I don't want to be stuck here at the house by myself with nothing to do except chores, be on my phone, or sleep. I told her I wanted to get back into gaming, get a TV, a PS5, and internet. She blew up and was upset, yelled at me, and refused to talk to me about it. She left the house the rest of the day and was gone 7 to 8 hours. But during that time, instead of being bored again while she was gone, I went ahead and did the things I said I was going to do. Well, today is the following day, and I just told her what I purchased and did to be clear about it and not hide it. She got angry, said I knew having internet was a deal breaker, and I did it anyway, said some other hurtful things, and then asked me to leave. I'm sure I could have communicated this better, but I just don't know if I can save this somehow and still have something to do like game or watch some TV, even if only while she's gone. I told her while she was home or wanted to go out together that I would always give her and the home 100% priority, and I mean that, but that didn't matter. I'm going to breeze past her nonsensical no internet BS and ask where she's going on all these all-day outings. Does she tell you her plans or keep in touch when she's gone? Why are you never invited to join her? OP, thanks for asking. Yeah, she tells me, and sometimes no. It's been another point of contention. She has a weekly board game night, she plays some athletic events, but she also does things and is sometimes out pretty late with no willingness to share anything about it, and it's been the cause of more than a few fights. She told me she's not a cheater, would never cheat, etc., and I do genuinely believe her. Maybe I shouldn't, I don't know. And maybe I'd have some jealousy about who or what she's spending time with, but if she was more open and willing to share it, it would make me at least feel better and make it easier for me. What are you getting out of this relationship? That's what I'm wondering. He's given up everything for this person and she barely has time for him now. Is she really that busy with her new hobbies that she can't involve you? Curious, what are these new interests of her? OP, I know it may not seem like it, but she has a great personality. I think she looks great and is someone I genuinely enjoy being around and spending my time with. But yeah, there are some downsides and sacrifices that have been harder for me to accept with her being gone more often lately. So, just to be clear, she is totally wrong for the way she's treating you. But I'm not surprised so many people are just joking about it and telling you to break up with her. We all know if the roles were flipped, people would be in an uproar about how horrible her boyfriend was for all of this. Make sure you order a replacement spine when you order your new video games. Seriously, man. You moved in with a new mommy, not a girlfriend. It's just socially acceptable to hook up with her. Sounds like she's found herself a new guy to do that with anyway. It's your house too. She doesn't get to set rules for you. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his girlfriend? Please let us know. Some of these stories make me infuriated because I'm just like, how could anyone let someone treat them like this? I'm 27, male. My family wants me to break up with my girlfriend, who's 22, after how she responded to my brother's pranking her. He's also 22. I've been dating my girlfriend, Lola, for about 2 years now, and overall things have been great. My brother Ian has always been pretty weird whenever she comes up or is around. Ian and I are very close, talking to each other daily, but the conversation will usually change gears right as I start talking about anything Lola related. I thought maybe he was jealous of the time I was spending with her, or maybe had a little crush on her. Still, whenever we'd get together, he'd make comments about our age gap, poke fun at me for simping, or joke about her sleep disorder. Ian's always enjoyed a good prank. However, pranking or being pranked, he loves to laugh, and I genuinely believe that when he goes to prank people, he means it in a way to share the laughter. When he's tried to pull little pranks on Lola, though, he does things that he figured out triggers her disorder, like making sudden loud sounds, jumping out to scare her, and one time I caught him before he was going to do the shaving cream sleep bit while she was taking a nap in the guest room. I warned him then in more detail that he shouldn't mess with her while she's sleeping, as interrupting her regulated cycles isn't good for her, and at the absolute best, she's the worst kind of cranky when she's woken up. Ian looked like he understood, and I thought that was that. I threw a New Year's Eve party a few days ago and invited Ian and a bunch of mine and Lola's friends. Everyone was having a good time. My watch went off with the alarm that we set up for Lola to take a nap. She went off with a sleepy smile. I kept partying. A while later, we all heard a scream, followed soon after by cursing and something breaking. I panicked as it was from my room where Lola was, and I ran through, nearly kicking the door down, to find she shoved someone down and was yelling at them. I looked to see who it was and saw a spider mask that I unfortunately recognized as Ian's from years ago. I saw him scrambling to get away, but she only stopped when 3 of her friends pushed past to pull her up and check her before she ultimately passed out in their arms. Ian scrambled off the floor and ripped the mask off, revealing the work she had managed to do in the time it took for us to react. He started bawling, telling me that she was crazy, that he only wanted to make sure she wasn't going to sleep through the ball drop. At this point, everyone started yelling. Ian looked terrified and kept repeating that she was crazy and that I shouldn't be with someone who could do that to her boyfriend's brother. Some of my guys were yelling that if she did it to him, she could do it to me. All of her friends were screaming about how he should have known to leave her alone if she was sleeping and that he was creepy. Ian ended up calling our mom to tell him that Lola had hurt him, and she's furious. Lola's friends ended up carrying her out against my protests, and my friends were nearly split down the middle. I remember standing there while everyone argued while the ball dropped. My mother calling me for the 10th time, and Lola finally texting me that she needs space to think. Since then, we've lightly texted. She's expressed that she can't shake her fear of what happened, but she still hasn't told me from her side what happened. Ian and my mom are trying to convince me to break up with her and chastising me for not helping or standing up for my brother when she messed him up. Also demanding an apology for not playing my part as an older brother. Ian has FaceTimed a few other family members, and now my aunt, who paid for both of our colleges and the house my mom and brother live in and helped me get my apartment, is taking the 3-hour drive to make sure her boys are okay, which is stressing me out even more. On one hand, I know family is family, and I should do what I can to stand up for the people who helped raise me and become the person that I am. On the other hand, Lola is my girlfriend. I adore her, I love her. I feel like I should be there to protect her. I don't want to push her boundaries, but not talking to her is a different kind of hurt. Ian is convinced he was doing a well-intentioned prank and was wrongfully punished for wanting to make sure everyone was enjoying themselves. I don't know if I believe that, but I've known Ian for 22 years, growing up, and we are inseparable. I don't want to doubt him just because love may be blinding me. How do I approach the situation with Lola? How can I convince my family that Lola isn't a threat? She's honestly the most sweet and caring person and just can't be woken up, and part of me feels like she was pushed to that point. ETA. To everyone who has reached out to me with advice on how I can learn from this, thank you. To everyone who has helped me understand that just because family has done a lot for you, it doesn't mean you're indebted to them and can't have an opinion or a life of your own. Thank you. To everyone that reached out to me telling me that I suck as a boyfriend, they hope Lola leaves me, they wish that she got both of us. Thank you. Update. In short, while a lot of you advised I wait for Lola to tell me her side before I confront my family, they all came over to my apartment yesterday morning while I was writing out a list of questions for them. I was supposed to go over the night before, but I texted them saying I needed time and if we could meet later today, but they obviously didn't like that and showed up unannounced. The fighting started almost immediately, and I initially was thrown off by them being there, but I matched energy and started yelling back at them for their behavior and enabling of Ian and how I couldn't believe they had sided with him over this golden rainbowed baby aside. My aunt got in my face about disrespect, while my mom cried and brother went off on me. But I pointed at my computer and yelled back at them that if they genuinely believed Lola was the problem, then they were victim-blaming idiots that I wanted nothing more to do with. My mom kept crying. I got my aunt's attention with the computer, and she got close to look at the screen. I was going through comments to write up all the questions, and after a minute, she turned back to us, really my brother, and said, "What is this?" I explained Reddit and that I'd posted for help. Ian then stopped comforting Mom and pushed past me to get to the computer, asking what right I had sharing family business on the internet. My aunt stopped him and asked, "Why didn't you tell us you were alone in there? You never told me that she was sleeping." To say that all heck broke loose would be an understatement. Like a switch, my mom almost immediately stopped loudly crying and looked over at my aunt confused. Ian started shaking his head and reiterating his version of the story, which, listening to it, was infuriatingly off. I'd figured out that not only did he tell Mom and our extended family a version of the story in which Lola was all too violent with him when he jumped from behind a door to give her a little spook, but he left out the details that put him in any bad light. I started yelling again, calling him a liar, but he started crying and called me a liar who was just trying to lie for my girlfriend. At the sight of my brother crying, my mom pleaded with us to stop. My aunt scrolled more on the screen. It felt like both a minute and forever that we were yelling in each other's faces about how the night had gone, how I felt he always used his tears to get his way, him yelling at me about how ungrateful I always was, etc. Unfortunately, I forgot where we were and didn't keep the volume down at all, and sometime later there was a knock at the door. I didn't know who it could be. Some dumb part of me hoped Lola, though I knew it wasn't. It was 2 officers answering to a noise complaint from one of the neighbors. Feeling stupid, I plainly explained that we were all okay and just having a heated argument, but that no one was in danger. I did let them look around and talk to my mom and brother, but my aunt spoke up when it looked like they were just going to give us a warning. "Actually, I think it's good that you're here. My nephew has something he'd like to report." She motioned to Ian, whose eyes looked between her and the officers quickly. My aunt still looked as angry as when she first arrived, but she was glaring at Ian. "You know, hypothetically, if someone hits you without permission, that's something that you can and should report. Is there anything you want to say?" There was silence, eyes moving to everyone around the room. My aunt didn't look encouraging in a report, and that's when it hit me that she was calling him out. I stared at him, his eyes were bulging. He looked as panicked as the other night when he was trying to get away from Lola. One of the officers asked if everything was all right, and like clockwork, Ian started bawling his eyes out. My mom asked him what was wrong. I told her she had to stop babying him. He's been lying to you guys. My aunt asked him again if he had anything to report. "You were up in arms against this girl this morning. Where did all that fire go? Did she hit you or not?" It took a while of us pushing him, but he finally admitted to the room that he didn't have anything to report because he didn't feel like she'd be rightly prosecuted. The next story sounded closer to the one I knew, where he admitted to knowing Lola had gone to sleep and wanted to scare her so she'd wake up. I still don't know his reason why he wanted to wake her up. That he put on the mask. I asked if he knew that she had a phobia. He said he knew that she found them creepy, and that no, there was no one else in the room with them. He couldn't get any of our friends to agree to the prank, so he did it himself. He said he started making sounds against the wall. The bed was against the wall, and then got close enough to scream in her face. He said she woke up and surprised him because he thought the stress and panic would cause her to scream or hide, but she instead went straight for him. He described what happened to everyone in the room, some of which I saw had the officers look at each other and then back at him. Then that's when I pushed the door in. The door wasn't locked. I just panicked and didn't think to use the doorknob properly. I just threw my body at the door, and the rest of his story is what I was there for. I'm sure if the police weren't there, I would have fought him. I know I would have. My mom started crying even more when he said that she was sleeping, a fact that changed his entire story, and my aunt chewed him out. Everyone scolded him for his stupidity and his behavior, while the officers explained that it sounded like if what he said was true, Lola acted in self-defense, and that not only was what he did juvenile, but one of the officers asked my mom's permission to question him more as his behavior was concerning, and they wanted to make sure he wasn't a danger to anyone. My mom and I told the cops he was 22 at the same time, an adult, and they didn't need her permission. He looks a lot younger than he is. Upon hearing his age, one of the officers sat down with him and asked him to talk through his thought process, and the other officer explained to my mom and my aunt that Lola could press charges given Ian's story. My aunt still looked upset, while my mom cried about how confused she was over her baby. My mom literally looked at me and said she didn't understand how her baby could do this. I already knew I was deep in the BS of this family, but I realized that I couldn't grow in the earth that poisoned me, and I needed to get away from them if I was actually going to do better and stay better. My mom kept fussing with my aunt and another uncle on the phone, crying over the drama, while I texted a friend of mine who lives across the city asking if I could stay with him. I was feeling overwhelmed with all of them, and I didn't want to be within a few minutes of the source of the problem. I also wanted to give myself space to think and understand with a clear head. I'm typing this between breaks of my packing. My aunt saw me in my room doing this, but she didn't stop me. She only asked me if I'd spoken to Lola about this, and I told her I haven't yet, but I had plans to later on. She told me she was sorry for believing my brother without listening to any other accounts and that she hopes Lola is okay. So then it was just me in the apartment. The cops left after taking my statement from my brother and I. My mom left with my brother, still crying, my brother calling me a jerk, the world's worst brother, and my aunt gave me a hug, apologizing again for how she and her sister acted, and told me that I don't owe her anything, but that she'd like to know that Lola is okay. With everyone gone, I went to my friend's house, and I'll be there until further notice. He couldn't make it to the party, but he heard about it from multiple sources. I blocked my now ex-girlfriend after finding out that she was engaged and didn't tell me. My now ex-girlfriend, female 28, recently distanced herself from me, male 26, due to mental health issues. Of course, I was very concerned about this and tried to stay supportive without pressuring her during a tough time in her life. We slowly stopped talking. The relationship was newer, so I didn't know her friends very well and decided to find their social media to see if I can stay in contact with them for updates on her well-being. My ex-girlfriend had told me during our 6 months that she doesn't use social media. When I found her friends online, I also found out my ex does have social media and uses it regularly. To my surprise, I found out that she has been engaged to someone since 2019. When checking public records, her fiancé's primary address was listed the same as hers. I was shocked and asked her about these things despite her mental state. She denied the relationship and said they broke it off in 2020, to which I presented her with a photo of them in 2022. She told me she always lived alone and bought her place out of interest for seeing new areas, not living with a fiancé. She said I was being crazy and said it's none of my business. She told me to leave her alone, and I said, gladly, to which she wildly kept on talking. I think she panicked and realized she was losing part of her support system. Part of me is shocked, happy, and relieved to have found the truth out and get the heck out of there before I got myself into a mess with this person. But part of me feels terrible for leaving her when she's struggling and most likely adding to it. I guess I will never know what the full truth is or if she was even struggling. Am I a terrible person for doing this? Update. Did contact the fiancé. Will let you know what happens if he responds. Update 2. 24 hours later, fiancé has not responded or hasn't seen the message on his social media yet. Ex-girlfriend deleted her social media account entirely with photos of them and info saying that they were engaged. She still has another social media account that is private and actively uses that I don't have access to at this time. She has added 7 posts to it just this week. We'll update again if fiancé responds, not sure when that will be. Update. I contacted her fiancé who filled me in on a lot of details. We decided to get on a phone call to sort some things out. It turns out they were together while I was talking with her. They were even still together while I was visiting her place, and she would hide all of his belongings. She would only let me come over when he was out of town for work or visiting his family. He said he never knew about me, and she hid it very well. He also explained the following. They did end up breaking off the engagement, but he broke it off because he caught her cheating, not with one, but 2 other guys during their 5-year relationship, one of which happened right before she started talking to me. She would send them messages and talk in ways they shouldn't have been. She did the same thing with me. I also found out the way I met her and the things she said to me are the exact same things she told her fiancé before they moved in together and got engaged. This girl told me that she wanted to get married and move in with me just the same way. In addition to this, apparently the fiancé met her while she had lived in another state and was in a relationship with someone in the army. She left her army boyfriend, who she met online just like her fiancé and me, to be with this guy and move in with him. The fiancé said he is not mad at me for any of this and was very chill and understanding. We both agreed that she is really crazy. Gee, you think? So it turns out she does this consistently and has made a pattern of it, almost as if she knows that she is going to do it before it even happens. She knows all of the right things to say to get the guy emotionally attached to her, and then she does whatever she wants once she knows that she has them wrapped around her finger. I guess once she gets bored with them or starts feeling guilty, she cuts it off and starts all over again with a new person and continues building on the lies of her past. Thank goodness I dodged this ticking time bomb. I thought things like this only happened in movies. This is seriously one messed up person. I do not feel bad about blocking her at all anymore. Update. She spoke with her fiancé after I contacted him, and she told him that I lied about everything. When she got distant in our relationship together and said we needed a break, she went back to begging him to take her back, and he said no. She probably would have came crawling back to me if I had stuck around long enough to support her during her hard times. Boss introduces new time tracking tool to avoid time manipulation. Backfires on him. I work in a small startup company of around 12 people. It's a very good atmosphere in the office and everyone pulls their weight and is super motivated. However, our boss likes to micromanage us, even though he has no expertise in any of our fields: marketing, design, accounting. Especially us in marketing and design, we suffer a lot from that since he will make changes to our strategies, posts, and website, sometimes without telling us, and then gets upset at us when the customer feedback is bad and we aren't reaching our predicted goals. So recently he told us that the reason he thinks we aren't seeing enough results is because we are manipulating our hours and not actually putting in the work we should be. Until then, we each wrote down our hours manually in an Excel sheet, but with the new time tracking tool, he would see how long we were working down to the minute. We also could only log in on our desk PCs and previously approved home office devices, but not mobile because if you're not at your desk, it's not work. After our initial shock passed and our boss left for the day, our manager called for a meeting and we came up with a plan. We would do as he says, in the most just following the rules way possible. 1. We would not engage in work-related conversations with him unless we were sitting at our desk and are clocked in. 2. Any questions by him which are asked after we're clocked out will only be answered once we clock in the following day. 3. Every phone call, text message, or otherwise work-related thing outside of the office would only be answered once there was an option for us to clock in, either the next day in office or for some of us on our home office devices. 4. Since we no longer have the option to shift time manually, all work minutes and hours would be clocked exactly when they took place. 5. We would stop any independent activity, like posting on social media or writing an email, and would send him everything to approve before following through. After about a week, our boss was so fed up with this, he gave us the option to clock in from our mobile devices so he could get a more immediate response to his questions. However, this of course led to us clocking in ways more efficiently. I'm happy to report that as of 2024, we have abolished the system again and regained most of our independence. And even though our boss is still upset about how we exploited the system, it brought the team closer together, and Home Pulley taught him a lesson. My son gets jealous of his sister's Christmas gift and flips out. Our son is 22 and our daughter is 26. She bought a house in July. We know that moving into a new home always comes with unexpected costs, right after you've probably depleted most of your funds. So for Christmas, we gave her $4,000. Our son, we gave a few different things, totaling somewhere around $800. Our daughter had to work on Christmas, but we did Christmas on the 26th, and she stayed with us for the holidays from then until yesterday. Our son still lives with us, and today he told us both that he didn't want to say anything while his sister was here, but his feelings were hurt by the disparity in the value of the gifts. We explained that the gifts we got him were tailored to his interests, but his sister has just passed a big life milestone where money is more important to her right now than sentiment. He said it's still hurtful because it feels like we're more proud of her than him. My wife got really frustrated when he said that and asked why he would choose the least charitable interpretation of our actions. He said that's just how he felt and he couldn't control it. I said that we didn't give her money because we were more proud, but because we had experience being new homeowners and knowing that something always breaks in the first 6 months and it's always expensive. He said that was all fine and good, but it still hurt to get a worse present and feel like an afterthought. My wife asked if he expected us to get him $4,000 worth of gifts. He said no, but he expected the gifts between him and his sister to be equal. My wife said that's the same thing, and my son said it isn't. He said we could have given her the monetary equivalent of what we gave him. I told him that it isn't really fair for him to decide how much we spend on someone else's gift. Furthermore, cash is less personal than gifts, so giving her a cash equivalent to what he got would be her getting the worst gift. He said we just weren't listening to him and just justifying. My wife said we didn't need to justify anything and he was being entitled. At that point, he said he didn't want to talk unless everyone was civil and he went to his room. He skipped lunch, breakfast for him today, and when he left for work, he didn't say goodbye even though I was right by the door. My wife is irritated and my son is clearly resenting us. I can't really decide if we're in the wrong here. On the one hand, we should be able to give our money to whoever we want. On the other hand, I never want to hurt my son's feelings. Were we wrong? You're the jerk for doing this at Christmas. I'm the youngest of 4 siblings. My oldest sister is 10 years older than me, so we definitely reached milestones at different times. Things like wedding money, housewarming gifts, and money, graduation gifts obviously came at different times for each of us and were not tied to group holidays like Christmas. You could have given your daughter an $800 check or gift for Christmas and $3,200 for closing on the house at a different time and setting. Then you could tell your son, "We will be so excited to give you a gift of money to help out when you buy your first home." Instead, now it's a very disproportional Christmas gift, which is sure to raise some jealousy. Edit. My judgment is very light, and you seem like very generous parents who want to help both of your kids get ahead in life. I definitely don't think that you owe your son more now than an explanation and an apology for timing and reaction to his concerns. In the future, I would just keep shared gift opening times in kind for both kids and stick to milestone gifts timed with the milestone. Edit. After getting a lot of rent-free comments about the son, from OP's comments, it seems like the daughter lived at home until the house purchase to save up money, and they have no issues with the son living at home now and want the same opportunity for him. So I don't really see it as an applicable factor in the judgment. There was a clear invalidation of your son's feelings. He sounded like he was being really respectful and brought up valid points as to why he was feeling a certain way. Instead of being open about the whole situation, you started gaslighting. It's a good way to stop your kid from wanting to approach you about things in the future. You're the jerk. This was the big sticking point for me. Don't you want your son to feel comfortable coming to talk to you when he has a problem in the future? Is your son going to feel comfortable talking about his feelings and issues with mom and dad when mom immediately starts attacking him? Also, and this is just a suspicion here, but mom got real defensive and came out attacking hard when she wasn't even called out. He was just expressing his feelings. Her response was not proportionate, the point where she doth protest too much. Of course they don't want their son to express his feelings unless he's being always grateful and compliments them. If he has something slightly negative to say, he's an ungrateful, spoiled brat, at least in his mother's eyes. Honestly, the son sounded more mature in this situation. He waited for his sister to leave before approaching the situation and left the conversation when the mom started verbally going off on him. The parents could have kept the difference, $3,200, in a savings account, and if the daughter needed it, they could give it to her. I already bought a house 3 times and never had bad things happen that tanned my experience. It's called budgeting for the house. You don't buy a house without having some extra on the side for some unexpected event. I'm not saying my experience is everyone's experience, but OP is assuming that something bad will happen. But he and his wife could have waited to see if it happens or not. If it does, they could have stepped out and helped. Nonetheless, they should put the same amount aside for when their son buys or rents a house. It's not even a small amount either. I mean, $4,000 and $800 is a big difference. If you plan to give him $4,000 when he gets a house, then maybe no biggie. Also, don't know why your wife is so irritated by him explaining the clear disparity. I'd expect my kid to be upset if I made one a sandwich and not the other. Not the jerk. I feel like people on here hate favoritism so much that they think you have to treat your kids equally every second of their lives. The fact is, when kids are different ages and at different places in life, they'll be going through different milestones at different times. For example, if one of your kids had gotten their license that year and you got them a car for Christmas, that doesn't mean you need to spend a car's worth of money on your other kid that Christmas. That would be ridiculous. As long as you treat the kids the same in the long run and help them out similarly for these milestones, it's okay for there to be a little disparity every once in a while. Well, who do you think is the jerk? The parents or their son? Please let us know. Never ask a bunch of entitled kids on Reddit if $800 was enough for your son for Christmas. My parents literally got me a stress ball from the dollar store and I couldn't be happier. I've been sitting here squeezing it the whole time. My parents kicked out my husband over a joke. I've been married to my second husband, Mike, for 4 years now. He's a jokester and loves to crack jokes all the time. He especially likes to joke with my brother, Ethan, and his wife. Ethan used to be okay with it until he started complaining about Mike taking it too far with his jokes. Some context about Ethan. He and his wife couldn't have kids, so they adopted a boy, Joey, 2 years ago. Mike has been making silly, lighthearted jokes that involve Joey's biological parents as a way to mess with Ethan and his wife. I already talked to Mike, and I can tell you that he's 100% meaning no harm, and he just wants to try to get them to react. So fast forward to New Year's Eve. My parents hosted a big celebratory dinner, and Ethan and his wife came. So while we were eating dinner, Mike decided to tell a knock-knock joke to Ethan. He said, "Knock, knock." Ethan laughed and said, "Who's there?" Mike replied, "Joey's biological parents." Then he burst out laughing. Silence took over, and Ethan's facial expressions changed. His wife called Mike an idiot, to which Mike replied with, "Hey, relax, it was just a joke." An argument ensued, and dinner was paused. My parents suddenly told Mike to leave, which I thought was too harsh. I tried to speak to them and get them to calm down, but Mom insisted that Mike leave. We left, and Mike was complaining the whole time about how they overreacted. I called Mom later, and she told me Mike was out of line with his hurtful jokes about this touchy topic and told me that I was wrong for defending him and saying he was just joking. She said he ruined New Year's for the family, but I told her it was her and Dad who ruined the New Year's celebration for escalating the situation and kicking him out. I told her he could talk to them, but again, they were the ones who ruined New Year's celebration. She called me delusional for this statement and hung up. We haven't talked to them for days. I tried contacting Ethan, but no response. You're the jerk. Your husband likes to hurt people. It's nothing to do with jokes. Mike ruined the celebration. Wow, I don't know if I've read such an out-of-touch post on Am I the Jerk ever. Yes, you're the jerk, and so is your husband. Mike has been making silly, lighthearted jokes that involve Joey's biological parents as a way to mess with Ethan and his wife. What the heck? That's terrible. Teasing an infertile couple about their adopted kid's biological parents? I'm mortified. I'm super proud of your parents. Wow, you're the jerk. Sorry, but Mike is a jerk. Not uncommon for the jokesters who love to crack jokes to mess with people. Forget that. It's not in good spirit. It's one-sided bullying and just disgusting. It's not lighthearted or silly, it's just mean. The sentence, "Relax, it was just a joke," is horrible. Your Mike hides behind this excuse to be a jerk and to bully people, to push their buttons, to be mean, and then retreat when they get upset by calling it all a joke. You are enabling and supporting that, which makes you no better. Am I the jerk for selling my dad's house even though his widow lives there? I'm 33, female, and my father passed recently. He had been married to his widow, Penny, for about 7 years before. I was not close with my father. We spoke regularly and enjoyed each other's company, but I can't say either of us knew each other very well, for many years before his passing. When he passed, I was surprised to learn that he had left his entire estate to me. He put everything in a trust a year before his passing, and I am the sole beneficiary. Besides a small sum that he left to Penny, the lawyer said he was advised not to leave her anything in case she tried to contest it. Everything, including his house, is now mine. My father's lawyers and mine have advised that the will is structured such that it would be near impossible and very expensive to challenge. I don't want my father's money. I don't need it, and given our relationship, I don't feel right using it. However, he obviously wanted me to have it. So I intend to transfer everything over to my daughter, make her the beneficiary of the trust, and she will have that in addition to her own trust fund once she's of age. However, I do not want to keep my father's house. I do not live in the same country as my father, and I don't want to deal with the admin of his possessions. I want the legal business done and to close the book on a very painful chapter and grieve quietly. The trouble is, Penny lives in the house. Penny does not work and was financially dependent on my father. So while the lawyers say she could fight to stay living in the house, she likely can't afford legal counsel. Also, because of her lack of income, she would never be able to maintain the house, which is quite large. So I would then have to keep up the house and grounds while she lived there, which I'm not willing to do. Both because of the cost and because of the continued involvement with my father's life, which I do not want. I've notified her via the lawyers of the intention to sell the house, which has led to vicious messages from her kids calling me evil and heartless. I understand this is inconvenient for them, nor am I responsible for the people or the mess that he left behind. I'm not doing this to get one over on Penny. I'm just trying to be done with a traumatic part of my life. Am I the jerk? Because of the cost for upkeep that you can't afford, I'm going with not the jerk. Except your father, because I find it horrible that all he left to his widow was a small sum, and even that only to avoid her contesting it. Why on earth was he married to someone he cared so little about? Once you've set a price with your realtor, give her and her family a chance to purchase the house before you list it. Then, if they refuse, go ahead and sell. Not the jerk. This is the right way to do it. Tell her family you're not going to be responsible for the property and are selling, but you will give them the chance to purchase the property before listing it. I have a strong feeling no one will step up. Not the jerk. If Penny has the means, she can buy the house from you, or her kids can buy it for her. If she does not have the means, she was probably planning to mooch off you. Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard. Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.